Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrew Booker. I'm here with Christy Higginbotham from SWACO. We are just about ready to get started with our webinar on the Community Waste Reduction Grants. I just would like, maybe I see that Linda Rosine is on the webinar. Linda, if you could just send us a quick little chat message just to confirm that you are seeing the screen and hearing us clearly on the phone today. Okay, thanks, Linda. So we're going to get started. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the presentation. Today, we're going to provide you information about the Community Waste Reduction Grant Program application process. We are recording this presentation and we'll make it available on our website at the end of the week. So if you ever need to come back and review it, it'll be available for you. And I will point out now that there is also an application package available through the webinar. It's available for download via the control panel that you have access to. If you have printed out the document already, you may want to have it available in front of you as we go through the presentation, because we will be making reference to various sections throughout the presentation. And again, you could always come back and review the webinar in the future as well. We're scheduled for approximately 45 minutes today, and if you have any questions, you can type them into your screen in the chat box, and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. And if for some reason we run out of time, we'll get back to you individually via email as well. Okay, with that, let's get the show on the road here. Yes, so let me start out by just introducing myself again. I'm Andrew Booker. I'm the Programs Manager at SWACO, and I've been here at SWACO for a little bit less than a year, but I'm involved with the grant programs and will continue to be involved as we move forward. The majority of the presentation will be given by Christy Higginbotham. I'm going to let her introduce herself. She's been with SWACO a lot longer than I have.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Christy Higginbotham. I'm a Programs Administrator at SWACO, and I've had the pleasure of working with Andrew in the Innovation and Programs Department for this last year, but I've been with SWACO for over 18 years and focus on administering our education and grant programs. Today, I'll be discussing the important grant details and the process to apply for a community waste reduction grant.
Thank you, Christy. Okay, before we jump into the grant program, we'd like to focus a little bit, talk a little bit about who we are and some of the programs that we offer at SWACO. SWACO is a public agency. We're one of 52 solid waste management districts in the state of Ohio. We own and operate the landfill in addition to providing a lot of programs related to waste diversion and recycling. We work very hard to position our region as a leader in environmental sustainability by offering a wide range of programs dealing with reduction, recycling, and safe disposal of waste. Those programs include assisting communities and school districts in contracting for the provision of recycling services and also providing a publicly available recycling drop-off program. We also work with retailers on a Bring Me Back program where we encourage people to bring back their plastic grocery bags to be recycled, and obviously we encourage them as well to use reusable canvas bags. We also sponsor free yard waste composting for all Franklin County residents. We also work very closely with the Franklin County Sheriff's Department and Franklin County Prosecutor's Office to combat illegal dumping throughout Franklin County. We also help communities recycle their e-waste, their electronic waste, and we also provide free household hazardous waste disposal to Franklin County residents. And finally, we do a lot of education and outreach. One of the programs we're proud of is that we provide landfill tours to students and the general public each year. Before we move on to the details of the grant program, I also just wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of waste generation, recycling, and disposal in Franklin County, just to kind of set the stage for why we do this. SWACO's vision is that we have a community that is environmentally safe and resourceful, and our mission is to improve the community's solid waste stream through effective reduction, recycling, and disposal. To that end, we strive to educate all residents and businesses in Franklin County about the importance of diverting waste from the landfill through source reduction, recycling, and composting. And I would like to provide some information, some facts, figures related to the waste that we generate, recycle, and dispose. In 2016, we generated over 2 million tons of waste in Franklin County, and of that, about 1.14 million tons were landfilled. In that same year, about 957,000 tons were diverted through recycling and composting, which is a very encouraging figure. That's about 47% of waste was diverted from landfilling. That significantly exceeds the national averages. So while we are pleased with the progress that we've made, we're not satisfied yet with where we're at. And we know that there's a lot more material that could be diverted from the landfill in the future. And we're excited to offer the Community Waste Reduction Grant to support your efforts to do just that. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Christy to talk a little bit about what can be recycled in Franklin County.
All right, thank you, Andrew. So I'm going to quickly discuss the materials that can be collected for recycling, both in traditional and non-traditional recycling programs. The materials pictured on the left side of this slide are accepted by most traditional single-stream or mixed recycling programs in Franklin County. That said, these are not the only materials that can be diverted from the landfill locally. You may generate different materials that can be diverted through source reduction, reuse, or through a specialty collection program or service. And this could include items such as food waste, textiles, furniture, and electronics, which are not accepted in the traditional curbside recycling programs, say for residences. So our hope is that by offering our grants programs and collaborating with partners that share our passion for waste reduction and diversion, we'll continue to increase the diversion rate. So now let's talk about SWACO's grants programs. The SWACO grant program consists of two different grant offerings. We have the Community Waste Reduction Grant and the Event Waste Reduction Grant. Both have different grant cycles and were created to promote waste reduction, recycling, and reuse projects within SWACO's jurisdiction. These programs fall under the purview of the Innovation and Programs Department, which is focused on building collaborative partnerships that impact and improve the waste stream, leverage the waste stream for economic benefit, and contribute to a safe and healthy community. The goal for today's webinar is to provide more detail with respect to the Community Waste Reduction Grant Program. The purpose of the Community Waste Reduction Grant Program is to encourage innovative ideas that significantly reduce waste and increase the diversion of recoverable materials. Through this process, we hope to identify unique opportunities for materials diversion with partners and fund sustainable projects and programs. For those interested in applying, it's important to design programs that are transferable and scalable, which can serve as models to others. So we will now begin referencing the grant application information document sections. So if you have that in front of you, we're going to start with the grant funding section found on page 1 at the bottom of the page. If you don't have the grant application in front of you at this time, you can always reference it later while listening to the recorded version of this webinar, which will be posted to the Community Waste Reduction Grant webpage by the end of this week. Funding for a Community Waste Reduction Grant is limited. SWACO will reimburse the award recipient for grant-approved expenditures Provided the award recipient has submitted all required documentation as described in the final report requirements. The range of funding is a minimum of $500,000 and a maximum of $35,000. A 25% cash match is required. Your dollar request and matching funds description will be described in Form C, the project budget, which we'll discuss later in the presentation. And then just to note, under some circumstances, 50% of funding can be awarded upfront. This will need to be requested in writing as stated in the project budget form, which we'll also discuss a little bit more later in the presentation. So this is a competitive grant program. Your application will be weighted against other applications and evaluated by an internal SWACO review committee. The committee is made up of representatives from our legal, finance, and innovation and program departments. In order for an application to be evaluated by SWACO's review committee, there are fundamental criteria that must be met. And I'll go over those right now. So eligible, or the program activities must occur in the 2019 calendar year. Eligible applicants include, but are not limited to, communities, schools, parks, and nonprofits. Private for-profit businesses are not eligible to apply for this grant. The applicant and project must be located in SWACO's jurisdiction, which is comprised of Franklin County and includes the cities of Canal-Winchester, Dublin, New Albany, Reynoldsburg, and Westerville. The map shows Pickerington and parts of Lithopolis, but these communities are outside of SWACO's jurisdiction since the majority is outside of Franklin County. And so these communities would not be eligible. Okay, so the deadline to submit an application, including all of the required supporting documentation, is September 21st, 2018 by 5 p.m. It's important to note that we will not contact applicants to request any missing information, so submitting a complete package is really important. Now, that said, we are available to talk with you about your ideas and questions prior to submitting your application. We are happy to answer questions, to review draft applications, or to brainstorm ideas with you. And we're available to talk with you about all of these prior to your submission. In the application information, we do request questions be asked by September 14th. If we receive them after that deadline, we will do our best to respond, but we can't make any promises. Additionally, the application must be completed and submitted by the entity responsible for implementing the project. Consultants, contractors, vendors, or unaffiliated individuals may not submit on behalf of the entity responsible for implementing the project. Funding requests for expanding or improving an existing program or project must provide a detailed explanation of current activities and how funding will improve the program or the project. And applicants should have no outstanding financial or compliance issues. All right, so on to the project categories. We've identified categories for projects and programs for potential funding opportunities under this grant program. So when thinking about the program you're designing for this application, ask yourself, does this concept or idea reduce waste generated or divert or recycle materials from the waste stream? These categories can be used as a guide in thinking about the innovative possibilities of your diversion program. These categories include waste reduction and reuse initiatives that focus on reducing or eliminating waste or the reuse of items and materials. Recycling initiatives that significantly increase the diversion of recyclable materials from the landfill and or address difficult or hard to recycle materials. Organic waste and or food waste diversion programs that focus specifically on reducing or diverting organic materials. And activities that enhance public awareness through targeted education and outreach efforts. If you're asking for funding for activities that include the collection and diversion of materials, please be sure to describe the items and the materials that are being collected and where that material is being taken for sorting and processing. Okay, so on to the eligible use of funds section. This can be found in the application information document on pages 2 and 3. And this provides guidance and examples of acceptable uses of grant funding. Funding requests can be made for equipment, supplies, and or professional services. Eligible items can include, but are not limited to, the following: durable, reusable equipment to be used for waste reduction, reuse, recycling, and composting. So this can include reusable containers, reusable signage, and processing equipment. Equipment descriptions and their intended uses and pricing must be provided with the application. And if awarded equipment purchased with grant awarded equipment purchased with grant dollars must be maintained by the recipient for at least 3 years. Also, eligible expenses would be supplies for education, outreach, and awareness activities. Eligible education initiatives should focus on reuse, recycling, diversion, or composting, and a description of the materials and their intended use with pricing, again, must be provided with the application. And then lastly, we will consider professional services. This may include contractual expenses relating to the provision of waste reduction, diversion, consulting or planning services, transport and hauling of recyclable or compostable materials, or fees related to the acceptance of recyclable or compostable materials at a licensed facility are also eligible. So if you are considering requesting professional services, please note that a scope of service describing the services to be rendered, including quotes and rates, must be provided with the application. Also, if grant funding for professional services, say it's to assist with consulting or planning, is approved, a copy of the resulting plan or report will be required to be submitted with the final report at the conclusion of the grant period. Please keep in mind that programs must be sustainable and work towards increased diversion with measurable impacts. The sustainability and long-term social, economic, and environmental benefits of a project should be emphasized. Programs that only occur once or that do not describe sustainability benefits may not be graded as highly when evaluated against other applications that create an ongoing impact. Okay, so on to the ineligible use of funds. Please remember that if your grant application is approved, any expenditures made prior to both parties signing the grant agreement will not be reimbursed. As soon as both parties have signed the agreement, approved purchases can be made. This program does not provide funding for the same program activities as previously awarded under a SWACO grant. Funding for in-house personnel costs, overhead or indirect costs, general office supplies and equipment, food and catering, equipment and services relating to the disposal of trash, hazardous waste, recycling, or disposal are all ineligible for funding under this grant program. Services that support existing diversion activities are not eligible. However, funding to replace existing program costs will be considered if the proposed activities significantly expand or improve existing programs or projects. I know that was a mouthful, and it's pretty clear in the application package itself, but again, please do not hesitate to contact us if you need additional clarity. And we had mentioned that additionally, non-durable single-use items and other costs not related to waste reduction and diversion will also not be considered. So I want to provide you with a quick overview of a few of our 2018 award recipients to give you an idea of what was proposed and funded with some of them. In 2018, we awarded 11 grant funding requests totaling more than $99,000. And examples of 3 of these projects include Otterbein University. They received an award in the amount of $27,810, which was to assist in purchasing water bottle filling stations for campus, to actually expand upon stations that they had already installed, and to also purchase reusable water bottles to be distributed to incoming students this upcoming school year. So there are approximately 17,000 single-use bottles sold on campus annually. They estimated that almost 4,000 are recycled, and so they really wanted to have a greater impact in terms of the amount of water bottles disposed of and or recycled and generated. And so by installing these water bottle filling stations and distributing reusable water bottles, they are anticipating to reduce the number of cases of water purchased in this year from 716 to 686. So the committee really liked this program and recommended approving funding for it because it contained good numbers, good measurements, good baseline, and they also are going to be working with their student affairs to distribute informational materials to the student body, and working with the sustainability committee to conduct pre and post surveys for determining if campus understanding and learning has occurred. So we really liked this comprehensive approach to waste reduction and reuse with Otterbein. Hilliard City Schools received a grant in the amount of $24,730 to work with a collection and off-site composting company, Go Zero, to implement the first district-wide, school district-wide cafeteria food waste program in Franklin County. And so we were excited to be able to award funding for this and also partner with the district in developing some educational and outreach materials. And then the City of Hilliard was awarded funding to assist with the purchase of recycling containers in order to implement a new single-stream recycling program at the Hilliard Aquatic Center. And this also includes a pre- and post-waste audit so that they can better understand the impact of implementing the recycling containers at their aquatic center. All right, so next we will discuss each form that is required to be completed and submitted with your application in a little bit more depth. So the first is Form A. This is our application cover page, and this just includes the contact information for the applicant and a snapshot of the project information. Form B is the project summary and narrative document. Form C is the budget request. Applications missing any of these forms will not be considered. There's also a checklist provided for your use. It doesn't have to be submitted with your application, though. So Form A, the application cover page, asks for the applicant's contact information and includes a snapshot of the relevant project information. At the bottom, you'll see a certification section, which should be signed by the person responsible for submitting the application and certifying that the information provided is true and accurate. Form B, I know these are a little tiny, but if you have the information in front of you, you can follow along. But Form B, the project summary and narrative, includes an executive summary, which should be no more than 2 pages, and then a project narrative, which should be 5 pages or less. We ask that you please complete the project narrative by following the order of the questions in the form, and you can obviously provide those on separate sheets of paper. And so this is your opportunity to explain why your project should be selected for funding. A large part of your application will be evaluated based on the information provided in this section. So please be sure to answer all the questions in the order that they appear on this form. Please clearly describe the goals and objectives of your project and be sure to address how you plan to measure the impact. The transferability of successful waste reduction and diversion strategies and how those activities will be sustained and if they will continue into the future should also be addressed. Also addressing collaborative partnerships, job creation, and the number of people affected can definitely make your application stronger. Ensuring the project activities are well defined and describing their sequence for implementation is very important, as well as demonstrating sound fiscal management and providing a realistic budget with justified need for financial support is critical. So getting into the financial aspect of it, we have Form C, the project budget. We require a 25% cash match. The cash match is 25% of the total amount of grant funding being requested, as illustrated in the example up top. So for instance, in this example, the applicant is requesting $10,000. The required cash match is $2,500, or 25% of the requested grant funds. The match must be directly tied to the program or the project that funding is being requested for. And then applicants are required to itemize all grant items and associated costs. So that's what happens in the table just below it. We're asking that you please identify if the cost is part of the grant in the second column, or the match contribution in the third column, and then provide a total in the last column. The budget summary is also required and should be no more than 2 pages. And your summary should describe each item as requested for grant funding and how it will be used in the project. So you have your itemized requests in the items in the table, and then we also expect to see the summary providing a little bit more detail as to how those items will be used. And again, applicants may request to receive 50% upfront funding. Providing sufficient justification has been described in the budget summary with a written needs statement. Supporting documentation pertaining to the request can include quotes for equipment, supplies, and professional services. But again, if you're requesting funding for professional services, at a minimum, attach a scope of work, including their rates. Contracts can also be provided, but we understand you may not have executed a contract prior to requesting this grant funding. And then just a quick note, if your project is awarded funding, SWACO will reimburse you for the grant-approved expenditures, provided that you have submitted all required documentation as required in our final report. And again, please note, any purchases made prior to the execution of the grant agreement, so when we have both of our signatures on the grant agreement, those are ineligible until after the agreement has been executed. This is the application checklist that's provided for your use, just to ensure you have completed all of the necessary forms and documentation. And then this is our timeline. So outlined in the slide is a list of important dates relating to the timeline of this program. Again, the deadline to submit is by 5 p.m. on September 21st. And after we receive all of the applications, we will convene our review committee to review and score each application. And then all applicants will be notified of their status in early November. At the time of notification, if you have been chosen as an award recipient, you will be invited to attend an informational meeting at SWACO. And what we'll cover at that meeting is just more details associated with entering into an agreement of SWACO and with SWACO and the administration of your project, essentially. And then all required forms must be completed. The contract must be signed within the month of December. And then January of 2019 is when the projects and the agreement will officially start. And so this is our last slide before we answer some of your questions, but I just wanted to give you an idea of some of the information and documentation that we would be asking for should your application be chosen to receive funding. And so in addition to executing a grant agreement with SWACO, we will need a current W-9, an affidavit of authority, which guarantees us that the person signing the contract on behalf of your organization has the right to do so, and then proof of insurance. And so with that really just covers the high points of our program, and we are happy to start taking your questions. Bear with me. Okay. Were we that thorough? Let me just make sure I'm not missing something. Bear with me, everybody. I see a hi, Christy, but I don't see a question. I know that one question. Oh, here we go. I'm just going to throw one out there. Okay, so do you have any examples of in-kind contributions? So we do not accept in-kind contributions as the match. This must be a cash match. Hopefully that provides clarity, but if not, you can certainly send me a separate email or call me. And then it says, can you check more than one category on Form B? And yes, you certainly can. You would just want to make sure that you are providing sufficient detail on the types of diversion initiatives that you're going to be requesting funding for. And we have another one. My organization did a wonderful Shred-It Day in 2017. Based on your information, a Shred-It Day event is not acceptable, right? And so if this is an activity that you have already done, it would not be. Now, if you have plans to do something different, or if you are planning to expand these services or improve the project somehow, then that could definitely be something that could be eligible. But I would recommend that you give me a call first, and so we can kind of discuss the details. And it says, another question, I would like to do one in 2019. Under question number 8, it states, provide any examples of outside resources that will be leveraged, or in-kind contributions being provided. I apologize. So that is going to speak towards collaboration and other resources that you would be utilizing while implementing your project. And yes, we do want you to speak to that in your summary and narrative, understanding that in-kind contributions cannot be used as a match for the budget. Hopefully that answers the question.
But it can be useful in demonstrating to us that you're making a commitment to the project by bringing in these outside resources or in-kind contributions of time and so forth.
Exactly. Sorry about that. Yes, that answer. Yes, you're welcome. Hopefully, the answers to your other questions were clear. Oh, wait, we have one more. Bear with me. If I'm writing a grant for collection containers in a building, but we haven't secured a recycling hauler yet, is that an okay request? Or should we include a plan with a vendor to prove that we're going to use the containers for a new recycling program? So to answer your question, it's actually kind of yes to both. So if you are writing a grant for collection containers in your building and you haven't secured a contract yet, that's okay. But what we would want to see is some type of documentation that maybe you've received quotes from a hauler, and that you would be committed to implementing and sustaining the program long term. If you also, something to consider, if you have not ever recycled in your building and you're seeking collection services as part of a new program, those can also be approved for funding as long as you can prove that you are committed to sustaining the program. And so, even attaching a letter from someone at your organization that, has the ability to execute an agreement with a hauler and purchase containers, stating that this is the intent, would make your application a lot stronger. But we would also want to see quotes for the containers. And a lot of times we'll come back and also make recommendations on containers if we feel like there might be a better container for those purposes. Hopefully that answers that question.
Mm-hmm. And that was from Emily. That's a fairly common type of a project in terms of securing containers and starting a new program or expanding a program. I would encourage you to contact Christy directly to talk about it, because there are a lot of, as you maybe got a sense from her response, there's a lot of different approaches that could be taken. So that's probably worth a phone call to chat about that one. Yeah,
I would agree, Andrew. That's a good recommendation. And then, let's see, we have one. Would I be able to receive contact info from the Hilliard City Schools recipient to get ideas to successfully implement a better? Yes, absolutely. And this is sorry, I didn't finish the question. To implement a better recycling program at Grove City High School. In other words, would a former program recipient be willing to discuss with me? Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of part of, when you accept the grant award, is helping others and serving as a model, really. And so I know that my contact at Hilliard is more than happy to do that. We've already had discussions about that. We also have been working with Southwestern City Schools on trying to improve recycling at the district. And so I would love to speak with you offline also about how we might be able to assist you in those efforts. And another question I'm reading here is, can you elaborate more on planning services, on what planning services would be covered? So yeah, there are a number of companies that provide waste audits, waste assessments, and also provide
like program development kind of consulting, and develop a plan to implement a new program within a building, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and even companies that would provide like planning for implementing, long-term sustainability diversion programs. There are companies that provide, those types of services specifically to solid waste. Hopefully that answers your question, but please shoot me an email if you want me to be more specific. Wow, there's lots of questions here. How are we on time?
Mhm.
Can you discuss one or two of the best projects you've received over the years? Wow, that's a loaded one. So this program started in 2016, 2017. It was actually, it didn't used to be on the calendar year, but, you know, dating back to 2016, 2017, and there have been a number of them. But, you know, if you think about the waste hierarchy and how you're supposed to approach waste reduction and diversion, you know, you always start with reducing and reusing first. And so just speaking for myself, some of my, you know, most favorite projects are the ones that get ahead of things and are able to implement programs with a strong waste reduction, reuse component from the beginning. And so one of the ones we did in 2016, 2017 was we helped provide funding for equipment for Goodwill Columbus's outlet store. And the outlet store is different from the retail locations where you drop off donations, and that anything that doesn't sell in those retail stores ends up at the outlet store, and it's sold per pound for at a reduced cost. And I like that approach because it kind of gives these items one more chance to be sold again before a lot of them are sent off to be recycled. And so, you know, it just doesn't stop with the waste reduction and the reuse. They find areas for recycling textiles and electronics as well. And so that was a good one. I really like the Otterbein one, where again they're addressing it from the waste reduction side of things. But we recognize that recycling programs are really, really important still at reducing what is coming into the landfill. And so helping schools implement district-wide recycling programs is another one that we feel like is more attention is needed. Hopefully that wasn't too long of an answer. Andrew, do you want to take a couple?
Well, why don't you do this one, because who do you contact?
Who do you contact? Yeah, you contact me. So if you send an email to grants@swaco.org, it will actually, Andrew and I will both get a copy of it so we can ensure it's not missed. But you can also pick up the phone. Actually, let me advance to that slide for you. I just realized I didn't do that. So you can pick up the phone and give me a call, or I'm Christy, or you can shoot me an email. That's great to hear. Yes, please contact me about Hilliard City Schools. We had another person ask about that, and so yeah, I'm happy to share contact information so that you all can learn more from them. And the email address, so there's two on the screen now. You can either send it directly to grants@swaco.org, or you can send it directly to me, christy.higginbotham@swaco.org.
And I would encourage folks to learn more about the Hilliard School project. It's a really exciting project. They've done a lot of good work, really shown commitment, learned a lot in the process, and really like sharing what they've learned with folks. So,
yeah, definitely.
It's well worth learning more about.
And understanding that it is still underway. They have not launched this program district-wide yet. They're taking a phased-in approach, and so they've started with all of the elementary schools. And part of that is that they've formed a green team within the districts. But yeah, we can definitely share more information about that program as it progresses. All right, I think that's it for our questions. We're so excited and so thankful that you chose to spend this time with us today learning more about this program. I'm looking forward to speaking with you and answering any of your questions or concerns should you choose to draft an application.
Thank you so much. You've got Christy's contact information there. She's always available, so please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you.
Have a great day.